Hello, my name is Caitlin Steven, and I did my poster on GMOs, which are genetically modified organisms. And I wanted to go into depth on why we should use them in agriculture, why we shouldn't, what are the pros of using them, what are the cons, are they safe, if there versions of them are safe, and so and so. So the ethic type I chose that I thought fit this situation the best was utilitarianism, because GMOs are created to be beneficial in some way or shape or form, either to resist pesticides and help yields, to be drought resistant, heat wave resistance, reduce the number of pests and insects that rip up the fields and decrease crop yields. Or lower maintenance that's used for them because you're not using as much pesticides, insecticides, herbicides on them. But there's also a lot of unknowns that come with them. Like we don't have a lot of research on them. We don't know the bigger impact they have on the ecology of the crops and the soils they're used, the insects that come and pollinate them. We don't know any of that. But there is one thing we know that we know that we're using more than we used to. I mean, according to the USDA, we have gone up at least to a total of 89% of some varieties of GMOs, either be it heat resistance or herbicide tolerance or some shape or form. So I just wanted to go into common myths that I personally heard and see if they were true or not. Like the first one is CSI genesis is a safe form of GMOs because no foreign genes are used. So CSI genesis is when we take the genes of the same species of plants or organism and transfer it over into another organism. Like with potatoes and wheat, we do this. And it's still not completely safe because to do this, we use bacteria to cut out the pieces of DNA we want and implant it into the other DNA. So there's still a little bit of foreign genes in there, even though they don't last as long as they would be with transgenesis, which is actually a different species of gene that the genes we are taking and putting into our plants. Usually we do this like for pesticides, like scorpion genes have been trying to be used to reduce the use of pesticides in some fruits because they harbor a resistance to insects. The second myth is, are GMOs regulated for safety? And that's not really true because the companies that develop them, and then once they're approved, after a while they just stop being regulated. They regulate them enough that farmers that they don't have a contract with can't use them, but they still get spread out into the wild. Like you hear stories about GMOs transmitting between wild varieties of the same plants and mutating. And the last one is independent studies shown that GMOs are safe. Most independent research done on GMOs is done by researchers funded by the companies that make GMOs. So there's a debate on whether they're biased or not, providing information, only the information that the company wants put forward and not what truly the study shows. But there are lots of benefits of GMOs, like the study from golden rice, which added vitamin A to rice. So communities in the Philippines and Bangladesh suffered less from vitamin A deficiency, which caused childhood blindness, anemia. There's all sorts of stuff that can be caused by vitamin A deficiency. Another case is a cassava plant in Africa, which had a similar thing done to it, where it increased the number of proteins and minerals found in the plant, which had the same effect. It decreased the likelihood of childhood anemia and other sicknesses from weak immune systems. So, and then there's resistance to herbicides and pesticides so the plants don't die off. So the yields will be increased, which is shown to have actually an increase of 21%. So there's a lot of positives from GMOs. But there's also a lot of negatives. Like, we don't know that much about them. There's not that many independent studies that are funded in some way or shape or form from the companies that make them. Which makes sense, because the companies have those studies done to make sure the crops are safe to use. But then, they're companies, they still want their money. And then there's the problem of GMOs interbreeding with wild species, so even the plants that aren't commonly pesticide resistant, which are weeds that we want to kill off with pesticides, are breeding with these GMO plants.